Japan is numbered among the G8 countries. In spite of many economic and political problems, Japan is one of the world's most stable and advanced nations, and can be duly proud of its highly safe, state-of-the-art transportation system and its universal health care. How then can it be called a mission country? In a total population of some 127 million, the Catholic population comes to only 0.3% of the total population. This, however, does not mean that Christ and Christian values have not been preached in Japan. The great apostle of Asia, St. Francis Xavier, first brought Christ to Japan in 1549. Though Xavier stayed only 2 years, his Jesuit companions continued his work. Unfortunately, during the following century, and mainly due to fear of foreign conquest, all foreign and native priests were deported or executed, and the Christian faithful underwent severe persecution. Some managed to maintain their faith and survive underground, as it were, for 250 years, until the country was reopened to the world in the late 1800s. At that time, the foreign missionaries of Paris came and opened many mission stations around the country. They also called in several French congregations of sisters and brothers who found schools and welfare institutions. In this way, schools, hospitals, and welfare centers became the Catholic point of insertion into a culture which was traditionally Shinto with an overlay of Buddhism. Shinto shrines are omnipresent in Japan, and most people are registered in one of these. A visit to a shrine at New Year's, blessing of young children and couples, and prayers before construction work begins are deeply rooted traditions. Buddhism, on the other hand, was imported, especially from China. Buddhist temples also abound and are popular venues for funerals, but more importantly, they provide a solemn atmosphere for meditation and instruction in the sacredness of all forms of life. A deep Confucian influence can also be seen in the accepted moral standards of social and family life. The Society of Jesus was remissioned to Japan in 1908, when Pope Pius X requested the founding of a Catholic university in Tokyo. Today, Sophia University is the Society's most influential presence in this largely secular society. During the last 100 years, the Society extended its outreach with numerous parishes, Sophia University in Tokyo, and Elizabeth University of Music in Hiroshima, 4 secondary schools, 4 retreat houses, and 3 social centers. When Father Pedro Arrupe was provincial of Japan before becoming general in 1965, there were over 440 Jesuits in the province. Father Arrupe, himself a victim of the Second World War and the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, had urged Father General Janssens to appeal to provinces all over the world to send Jesuits to help instill Christian values in Japan as it rose from the ashes of World War II. The response, mainly from Europe and the Americas, was overwhelming. And even today, Jesuits in Japan still hail from more than 20 provinces. They have all gone through an intensive language program, and the great majority have been tremendously successful in contributing to our major works or in opening up new frontiers. However, our present membership is aging. The number of Jesuits in the Japan province today is less than half of what it was 40 years ago, and the average age is one of the highest in the whole society. In recent years, some men from various Asian countries like India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Korea have generously come to work in the province.
Some of my happiest moments would be when I can, in an informal situation, make students, especially young people, laugh. That I feel that this is, in a sense, a good human contact with people, and it spreads joy, which is what we're about. The gospel means good news, and too often we're with very sad faces when we talk about the gospel. But just being able to informally make people laugh, and that's not always easy in Japanese, so those are real good moments for me. Others would be, of course, I teach, and teaching a good class and having the students respond is always a fulfilling moment for me. Another thing I experience great joy with is I've done Zen for many years, and for Zen we have these intensive Zen sittings called sesshin for 4 or 5 days, and at the end of those it's such a tremendous experience having gone through this with other people for day and night for 4 and 5 days in silence, but there's such a great amount of joy at the end because Zen is a very deep experience, and that having that experience also in this context, most of the people I would be sitting with would be non-Christians and Buddhists especially, and that is also a very deep joy that I can be a part of this group, which is the major group in Japan, the major religion in Japan. I think one of the biggest things that I would say, most important thing that I see is this idea of missionaries in Japan learning from Japan and Japanese culture and Japanese asceticism, spirituality, not by reading about it or doing research about it, but by actually participating as far as it can. And through that experience, if we can integrate that properly into our traditional spirituality, especially our Jesuit spirituality, I think we can make a great contribution to the church. And for me, that is the most important thing, and that's where I feel a lot of vitality and interest in doing something like that. As I say, it's not so much an academic process, but one that people have to experience themselves, integrate, and then somehow present to other Christians, not only in Japan, but throughout the world. And I would suggest to young people who have that kind of an interest that this would be a good place to to work and to experience such things and make that contribution to the society of Jesus and the whole church and the world.
The Japanese are very gentle, polite, hospitable, and hardworking people. Though it is a developed and secular nation, I'm very happy to be sent here as a Jesuit, and I'm very happy and especially grateful to be able to work among the young people of Japan. However, I think it is a very challenging society to work as a missionary. One of the challenges is the individualistic and secular character of the society. People in Japan are becoming more and more non-religious, especially in the case of institutional religions. But at the same time, we feel a tremendous need and demand for a spirituality. We see people suffering psychologically and people feeling lonely are increasing. And they are looking for spirituality and spiritual support. I think what we need to offer is a tangible presence of a loving God, God's love in a secular world. I think that is the challenge of being a missionary in a developed and secular society.
But we need more missionaries, not only because the number of Jesuits is decreasing, but because we realize the importance of preaching the gospel in a country where it is still practically unknown. We need generous and enthusiastic hands to work in the Lord's vineyard as sons of Ignatius in Japan. We are presently discerning how to concentrate our personnel in works that are still frontier works in Japan. Sophia University will continue to require men to work at the frontiers of teaching and research, and to staff its Catholic Ministry Center. Our spirituality centers will continue to accompany people in their desire to respond to the call of God. Our parishes will provide an arena for Bible study, introduction to Christianity, and church weddings and funerals for Catholics and non-Catholics alike. Many of our educational and apostolic centers have been sending volunteers to serve the homeless and to help rebuild the areas of Japan devastated by the earthquake and tsunami of March 11, 2011. The physical devastation of Japan in that appalling natural disaster is paralleled by great spiritual devastation. More than 30,000 suicides a year, increasing instances of domestic violence and dysfunctional families, abortions, withdrawals from society, and many workers rendered homeless through unemployment. There is also a general distrust of religions, aggravated by the disruptive behavior of some extremist cults. However, a deep hunger and thirst for the eternal and transcendent can be felt beneath all these negative factors.
イエスは船から上がり、大勢の群衆を見て、飼い主のいない羊のようなありさまを深く憐れみ、いろいろと教え始められた。今の福音書の箇所は、現在の日本にそのまま当てはまります。今の日本の問題、それは多くの人々が人生の希望を見失っているということです。一回限りの人生、それをどのように送ったらいいのか、その人生の道筋を分かってない人が多いです。今大切なことは、一人一人が自分が本当にかけがえない人間なんだ、 神から愛された神の子なんだ。この素晴らしい人生を送れるんだ。そのことに人々が気がつくことが大切です。私たちは特に若い人と関わろうとしています。若い人と人生の道を共に歩む。共に喜び、共に苦しむ。そのような生き方を私たちはして、若い人たちにどのように生きていったらいいのか、彼らが深く思い巡らすようにと導こうとしています。そしてそこで一番重要なものはイグナチオの礼葬です。礼葬の精神を持って私たちが接していきたい。そして彼らが奉仕する人、すべての命のために生き抜くことができる、そのような人に成長することができるようにと、私たちは願ってさまざまな仕事を展開しています。マタイの福音書の最後にイエスがこうおっしゃいます。すべての民を私の弟子にしなさい。この地にあって私たちはそのことに努めています。そしてそのような人を私たちは必要としています。
Our universities and secondary schools, parishes, and social centers do what they can to make available the Lord's healing hand. But our human hands are few. Maybe you will feel called to add your hand to the work of Christ begun by Xavier, but still amounting to a mere blip on the horizon of one of the world's most populated countries.